welcome to Women of Color's Table Talk. Today we're going to talk about the subject of mental health. And I've got a few ladies at the table, and we're just going to kind of go around and we're going to talk about different things and give you some information, give you some phone lines that you may call when it comes to mental health. Today I'm with ladies who have served in the armed services. And we're going to just talk about their stories and let them express themselves. And it's going to be really good. So I implore you to continue to watch and to listen to each and every one of them. Each and every one of them have different stories, different timelines as to when they were in the service. And it's going to be all good. So I'm going to introduce the ladies to you and they can say hello. I've got Miss Sonia Brown here.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Sonia. I've got Miss Evelyn McGovern, who is the president of Women of Colors.
Hello, everyone.
And I've got Miss Kimberly Napoleon, and
Hello,
she is
everyone.
also here too.
Hello.
So thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you ladies who would like to share your stories. I always tell everybody has a story. It's whether or not you're willing to tell that story. And when you tell that story, you are helping somebody else. So believe it or not, there are people who are going to be listening, who are going to be watching, who are going to say, that's me. I was there. And now maybe your story is going to help someone else. You never know what a person is going through until you actually talk to that person. We can be sitting here with each other every single day and not really know that person until you start to talk to that person and find out that you are more alike than you are unlike, right?
Yes.
And find out that your story is somebody else's story. They always used to say, I'd like you to walk a mile in my shoes, right? Have you heard that before?
Yeah. Heard that.
Yes, yes.
So, and if you actually walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, those shoes may not fit. They may be too tight. They may be too big. You may not like those shoes because we've all gone through different things in our lives, and different things in our lives has made us go in different directions of our lives. Right. And that kind of will lead me right into what I'm talking about today. And we're going to be talking about the armed services and how that served in, I'd say, your mental health and how it affected you mentally as well as physically. Because let's face it, some people who go into the armed services, it doesn't just affect them mentally, but it also affects them physically.
Yeah.
And you can actually see this. So we want to talk about it today, and I just want you to be as open as you can possibly be so that we can let everyone out there who's watching us, who's listening on, let them know that, hey, they got through this, and I can do it too. Right?
Right.
So I'm going to start, and my first question, and we'll go around the table with this question, and I'll start with Miss Sonia Brown, and we'll go to Evelyn, and we'll go to Kimberly. First of all, I want to know, what made you want to go into the armed services?
Well, as a little kid, I used to watch a TV show. It was called Combat. Some of you are too young to really
I remember that.
know that, but that was one of my favorite shows. And I just was inspired by the fellowship that they had with each other. And I used to just watch it religiously. And I said as a young child that I wanted to be in that type of setting, in that type of group. And so I had already made a decision at a very young age that I was going to join the Army because the soldiers that I was watching was actually in the Army.
That's good. I do remember that. But it never made me want to go in the army. I'm not even going to say it. And I used to also watch MASH. Remember MASH?
Oh, yes, I do.
Because that was an army setting kind of thing too. You know, but yeah, it never made me want to do that. But you know, I appreciate the fact that you did. I appreciate you a lot. How about you, Miss Evelyn?
Well, I guess I used to see a lot of commercials on television, and I like the professionalism of seeing the individuals, especially women, and it just kind of inspired me to want to join. Really, not so much the Army, full service Army, but as a reservist. So I was a reservist, and I started in 1993, and I was in the reserves for 8 years, and I did my time in Fort McPherson in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. That's wonderful. And you, Miss Kimberly?
Well, for me, it's a little different. I did not plan on joining the Army. I come from a family of 4. And I had one sister already in college, and college was expensive. So my uncle paid for me to go a year to then Saginaw Valley State College. But it was not challenging. I thought I wanted to do something in psychology and all of that, and going to school, it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't a challenge. I said, there has to be something else. So I came home. We were sitting there watching the TV, and the commercial came on. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines.
Yeah.
We don't ask for experience, we give it, but the Army slogan was, be all you can be.
It was.
And they saw them on that confidence wall, and the confidence, I was like, I could do that.
Really?
And I looked, and I told my mother, I said, I know what I'm going to do with my life. She said, what? I said, I'm going to join the Army. And she looked. She wasn't happy about it, but the next day, I went to the federal building right over where it used to be in the post office. And I took the ASVAB, and I started training with my recruiter and the other recruiters in the office. Yep, and so and my sister, she ended up joining too, so we left one day apart. So that's why I joined, because I needed a challenge.
You were
something more
really
challenging.
serious about that. I remember that. Be all you can be.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
but I
remember
didn't
that.
want to be that. I just, and you know, I was afraid. That's the reason why. Because
Okay.
I associated the Army, being in the armed service, with, I would see nothing but combat, being people being, you know, killed or whatever, and being in war and not knowing if I'd get back, and it terrified me. I must say it did. I remember my daughter when she was in high school, and she decided she wanted to join the service, and she had the recruiter man come to the house, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I like your mom, I really wasn't. I wasn't excited about it, because in my mind, it was all war that I felt that, and I didn't see the fact that you can go in there and learn a trade and become something wonderful besides protecting us and our country.
Right.
I didn't associate that. I only associated the part where, you know, you're going to go to war and I may never see you again. So it terrified me, to say the least. It really did. So, but
And can I just say,
yeah.
Also, I just remember too. Also, I know I needed structure in my life, and I wanted to be successful, and just, you know, seeing those commercial, and the individuals just seemed like they were just so successful and professional at the same time. And then also, like Kimberly, I saw that was an avenue to help me pay for my college and for continuation. And so that was another deciding factor that helped me decide.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. I was listening to you when you said, I just thought that it was all war.
Yeah.
And I was quite the opposite. When it was peacetime, like, I mean, we heard, you know, there were different things that, you know, were going on in that, but I never really associated, okay, I'm going to join the Army and I'm going to go to war. That's not what I signed up for, because like I said, I signed up for a challenge and the educational part.
Yeah.
But, and that was in 1987.
And you know what, Kimberly, I can even
And I've been in
remember,
conflict ever since then.
Really?
There's been a conflict ever since then.
I can remember I was in 6th grade. I want to say it was 6th grade. And I remember being in class and my teacher sitting up there, and we heard at that point in time they were drafting people into the Army. That terrified me, because then it was like, am I going to be drafted into the Army? Something I didn't want to do. But yeah, of course, I just really did not have the understanding that I needed, and I did not seek that understanding because I didn't have a desire. But I'm so glad that you ladies did. You became all you could be. You protected our country. You protected us, and I appreciate that. So I'm glad that you're sharing with us, you know, what made you go in. So I know that, I believe, when you first go in, you have to go through a boot camp. Is that correct?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Sonia, I'm going to start with you. Tell me how boot camp was for you.
Well, it was a little hard for me because I was in the Army. I joined in 1975. And back then, being a black lady, you know, we had the time frame where everything was about blacks and the red, white, blue colors that you wore and the big afros and everything like that. So I remember going in there, and during that time, You know, it was my first time really being around so many females. And we had females from all different walks of life. And back then, there was a lot of Caucasian ladies that were kind of living in places where they never had really saw any black people up front.
Okay.
So they saw most of us on television. And so I came in almost 6 foot tall with this big gigantic afro. And I could tell that a lot of the ladies were fearful of me. Because, and they admitted it, you know, after a while when they really got to know me, they fell in love with me. And they started sharing stories, and they told me how, you know, they lived in different parts of the state and how they never went to school with any blacks, and they had their own mindset of us based on what their parents might have told them or what they saw on television. So I remember they wanted to know how I had my hair like I had my hair. So I ended up giving everybody a perm, the little rods.
Yeah.
And I remember they all was walking around with afros like me. And so when it came time to graduate, it was so funny because when their parents came to see them, they all had different hairdos.
Oh my God.
But it was fun. You know, I think that was the most pleasant part of it, is just getting to know different people and getting them to know me as a person, as an individual. As far as the training and everything like that, it was brainwashing. Because you didn't have any, in my era, you didn't have any radios or television. I don't know about you ladies, but everything was military. They pumped military in you. And so you just, everything you did was just military. You know, even when you ate, you know, you had to be outside in the cold and the elements, standing at attention until you went in there and you had so many minutes to eat. So it was a little rough, but it did grow me up. You know, it taught me how to be a woman, how to take orders and things like that, and how to be disciplined. So at the time I went in, I needed to go in because I had a kind of rough childhood, and I found myself living with my sister in the 11th and 12th grade, and I was smart enough to realize that she was a newlywed and I needed to get out of her house. So, you know, joining the military gave me an outlet. I was able to join the military, take care of myself, and basic training was really something that was a plus for me because it made me realize that I now could take care of myself.
So it gave you structure?
Yes.
It did. You know, is it like what I see on, you know, some of the television shows, because that's all I can, you know, equate it to, is the yelling from your sergeants or your lieutenants or whatever they are, the yelling, the screaming at you, getting up at wee hours of the morning and running and going through dirt, and is it like that?
Yes.
And if it's like that, I mean, and I'm going to come to you ladies so you can explain, how did you take orders from somebody who's screaming at you and yelling at you and making you stand out in the cold, like you say, and you know,
it was quite easy. I mean, when you join the Army and you raise your hand and say you're going to join the military, they own you.
They own you.
I mean, you can't get out. You can't go home.
Yeah.
So you had to either adjust.
Yeah.
I mean, you just had to adjust.
So once you were there, you were like stuck there. There was, now I'm ready to go home. It was
unless you went AWOL.
or either you could not adapt.
Yes. Okay.
So really couldn't adapt.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, you had to be really, really
more at a
bad, and you had to probably have, you know, display some type of negative personality where they felt like you just wasn't a fit for the military. But for the most part, when you were there, you were there. During my time frame, again, you know, it was a lot of prejudice.
Yeah.
And so I experienced that a lot.
Sure.
Just being called out, you know. I can remember being in a setting where, you know, I don't know what I did. I can't remember doing anything. But it was the captain. And out of everybody there, she decided that she wanted to target me. And I remember my drill sergeant coming to me saying, "Private Brown, what did you do? This has never happened before. the captain wants to talk to you. What did you do? I said, I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything. So she was more nervous than I was. I was nervous because I didn't know what to expect. And so when I got in there, it was a Caucasian female captain. And she just began to just rake me over the coals verbally. And she said, "Soldier, do you want to be in this army?" And I said, "I joined, didn't I?" Oh, that was the wrong thing to say.
Ma'am.
I mean, and I did say ma'am, but, I was being honest. Why would I not want to be here if I joined?
Right.
But when she got finished with me, I was a little more humble. But yeah, it was hard, and I think that they just do that just to put fear in you.
To put fear in you. Okay. Evelyn, tell me your experience in boot camp. How did you make it through that time? And was it really hard for you, or,
It was hard. And I thought I was strong, but the military made me stronger. And to me, that experience made me believe that if I could get through the basic training, I could get through anything. And that was the strongest I had ever felt in life. That basic training time was the strongest physically and mentally that I had felt. Yes, it's very challenging, mentally and physically. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And a lot of times they would pick on the weakest person, the weakest link.
Yeah.
And that was for a reason. Because if that person had to defend you,
Oh, absolutely.
and you were weak,
Oh, yeah.
then what happens?
Right.
So I could, I understood that, but wow.
Okay.
It was an experience that you would never, ever forget in life.
Okay. And Miss Kimberly, how about you?
Well, for me, when I first arrived at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and we got out of the cattle car
Yes.
with your duffel bag and whatever else you had, and there was just like a big ball of confusion, just a lot of commotion, moving, just a lot of, that type of hurry up type of thing. But I realized in the moment, while all of the other ones were like frantic, I thought to myself, I said, well, they can't put their hands on me. And for me, from that point, when I stepped off of my bus at Fort Jackson, it was always mind over matter to me. And the yelling is just yelling to me. To me. And so that's how I was able to cope. I was a squad leader, went up to platoon leader, and in terms of the weakest link, you're right, Evelyn, they would seek out the weakest link. But my responsibility, because we're all in this together, is you're not going to bother the weakest link. We're one. So it's kind of like you build that camaraderie, you build a family, you build a bond, where one is, it's just like us as Christians. For us that are Christians, we know we build up, we don't put down. And that was always my mindset in basic training. I did not want, nobody was going to be left behind, not from my squad, not from my platoon. So for me, basic training was not hard. It just wasn't hard for me at all. I was waiting, like I said, I joined because they had that confidence course on there, and I saw, so I was looking for that. I enjoyed the high crawling, the low crawling, climbing the wall, wanted to go back and do it again. So for me, my basic training, if I had to do that all over again, I would in a heartbeat, but everyone's story is not like that.
I'm with some strong women.
And doing that and saying with the mind over matter thing, that also can, what I learned now later in life though, is having that mindset of mind over matter. Eventually though, all of that you've blocked out, it will resurface. If not buried. If not buried. So
well, I kind of think you guys are talking about boot camp and how it was tough, and then it wasn't so tough for you. But when you think about the youth today, you know how some of them don't want to listen to mama and definitely won't listen to daddy, you know, and when they would go, if they go into the armed services, they have to listen,
They have
you know.
to.
So it's I think it would be good for them because it does give
yeah.
them structure,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
It will teach them that you need to now grow up. You need to get your life in order. And this is the way it's going to be. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Is that
Right.
right?
Well, the
Right.
slogan is shape up or ship out.
Okay.
It's the same thing in the military.
That's right.
And a lot of times people will look at the military as, you know, the one with the big whip, if you will. But it's not. It's not. It is a volunteer.
Yeah.
You know, the males between, you know, whatever those ages are, you know, those years, they have to sign up for the selective service. But at the end of the day, it is volunteer.
It's valid.
And as Sonia said, that the captain asked her, "Do you want to be here?" So see, that was a question. Do you want to be here? Because see, if you don't want to be here, I can make arrangements for you not to be here.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not just, yeah, we sign our name, we sign that blank check. But there's things, there's benchmarks that you're going to meet.
Sure.
You have an obligation. You have to be physically fit, stay in shape and all that, because if you
Right.
know if you out of shape and you're no good mentally or physically, they will DX you. So it's not as easy as some people think. Well, they need some discipline, so we're going to send you here. For some, it works. You know, for some that maybe I have, you know, people say that was the best decision that they made because it was nothing in the streets for them.
Right.
Now they're, you know, doctors, they're
Oh,
attorneys,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, and so that helps them to, the military allowed them to cultivate that which
Right.
was in them
Right.
already.
And I'm glad you brought that out because when you're in the service, you do learn trades, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so that's good for a lot of people because when you come out, you know you've got that trade to fall back on, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is really, really good. So I'm going to start with Sonia, and you tell me what branch of the service, the armed service, that you were in, and tell me where you were stationed and how all of that was for you.
Okay, I was in the Army again. I went in 1975. I did basic in Alabama, Fort McClellan, and then I went to signal school, and that was in Georgia. After signal school, I went to my permanent duty station, which was in Fort Campbell, Kentucky,
Okay.
and I stayed there probably about 18 months, and then I extended my time so that I could go to Korea. So I did a tour in Korea, and then after that, I came out.
Wow, you extended your time to go to Korea.
Yes,
Ooh, that says a lot.
yes.
What made you want to go to Korea?
Well, again, keep in mind,
Yeah.
I'm only 18 years old.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I signed up to go to Germany. That's what I signed up to do because I was, I wanted to be an air traffic control operator. So when I went into the military, I was thinking money.
Sure.
And I had made up my mind what I was going to do with the money. But that didn't happen.
Okay.
Because when I got into basic, I had to take the flight physical, and I didn't pass it.
Okay.
And they said they told me I didn't pass the flight physical because I had sickle cell anemia, and I couldn't see good enough with corrected lenses.
Sure. Okay.
Well, I didn't know nothing about having no sickle cell anemia.
Yeah.
So I can remember calling home crying, and long story short, they gave me a list of things that I could do. Whole artillery, supply clerk, medic, and I just so happened to pick communications.
Okay.
So that was my trade, and you had mentioned that you can find different careers to do, and it helps you when you get out. And it did help me because I went into communications, and when I got out, I joined the phone company. I worked for the phone company for 32 years,
Okay.
which is communications. So, yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Evelyn? Where
Well-
were you?
Well, like I said, I was stationed in Atlanta at Fort McPherson, and my TI was personnel specialist.
Okay.
So basically, that's what I did when I got out of the service. I was in personnel and administrative, duties for over 25 years. So
And that's why you're so good at it right now.
I guess so.
And you, Miss Kimberly?
Yes. Well, I went in and I served from 1987 to 1996. My first duty station was Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And they said that if you can endure Fort Bragg, North Carolina, then you're ready to take on the world.
Okay.
So that was a nice duty station for me. In terms of, I met my husband there, we married, I have a daughter. I worked in logistics. That was my specialty, was logistics. That part was good.
Okay.
That part there was good, but in terms of the workplace environment, that was not so good. As Sonia said, Sonia went in 1975. Now, I went in 12 years after that.
Sure.
So I don't know what segment we on yet, but we're gonna just talk about what we're talking about now. So yeah, I was 19 years old. Never had left home before, and my chief that was over me, I had an extended. So sometimes you get extended details in terms of your job. You know, if you've excel like in one area, you make a crossover. It's kind of like a promotion, but not really called that.
Yeah.
And it required like a lot of late hours with burning midnight oil and meeting deadlines and that. And so that was the first time like that I ever really experienced like sexual harassment. You know, like I said, I was young then, and he was like twice my age. And I just was made to feel very, very uncomfortable.
Okay.
I would share that back at home, you know, and I kept my mother and my family. We were a very close-knit family, so everything that was going on with me, it was all, you know, documented through phone calls and that. And so finally I had enough, and I decided that I was going to speak up. And I talked with my sergeant. Her name was Sergeant Rose. And I explained to her, you know, in confidence how I was feeling, you know, and I was like, something's just not right. I don't want to stay with, you know, Chief anymore. And before, now the kids say, that ain't what you want, or this ain't what you want. Well, I was told that in 1988 by the EEO person that looked just like me. Well, you're young, you're private, everybody looks at Chief, everybody wants the Chief, the one who just, you know, don't pay attention to that, because this ain't what you want right here. I said, well, what I want is for him to stop making me feel
Absolutely uncomfortable.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And they told me the EEO is who I make that complaint with. And so I had it pretty rough for about 6 to 7 months. But long story short, what they did is they did launch. I went over her and went to the next battalion. And I did file a complaint, and they lodged an investigation. And eventually, he was removed from that unit, you know, and stripped of his rank, and then, you know, ended up being discharged from the military. So I do tell people that you have to speak up for yourself. When you know something is not right, you know when you're being violated or not. And sometimes you have to have enough courage to say, I'm not going to take it anymore.
And I think that's the key point. You've got to have the courage to do so. Because I think most people think when you report something, there's retaliation. You know, and you said you had it rough for a few months there. And I can imagine you would, because you reported this guy who was over you. And here he lost, you know, whatever he had, his stripes, whatever, was removed. That's a big step. So then you've got other people who might have been friends with him that, you know, would look at you in a different way or treat you unfairly. So you made it through all of that, and good for you. But not everybody is always at those points. You know what I mean? Not everybody can do that. They're too afraid to do so because of what could happen. Right? So, yeah, I'm glad that you spoke up, because, I mean, that is the right thing to do, you know, but I mean, yeah, you were brave. It's
Very
like a
brave.
whistleblower,
And what
right?
it did
Yeah.
is it opened the door though. And like I said, I was young. I was afraid, but I had to go to work. Like I
Yes.
couldn't just say, "Oh, I'm not going into work today."
Right.
I couldn't. You couldn't call in.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you couldn't take vacation.
Right.
Excuse me. You know, and leave like you had a job.
Yeah.
To do. But what happened from that though is it pulled the cover
Sure.
off of a lot
Sure.
of other people, and so other people were able to stand up. And I watched this Me Too movement and all of
Yeah.
that, and I say, that was me, back then.
Wow.
But sometimes it just takes one person, and like I said, from basic training, it was my responsibility
Absolutely.
to take care of those, weaker people, if you
Yes.
will. And for me, I just say, you know what? I'm not going to lose any more sleep over this. I'm going to do what I have to do. And if I have to stand by myself, when I left here, my then pastor from Bethel AM was Reverend Clarence G. Robinson. And he prayed with myself and my sister and my family. He said, you go in the name of the Lord. So I know where my help comes
Absolutely.
from. And I know who's protecting and
Absolutely.
who's keeping me.
Yes.
And so I believe that I'm going to speak up and speak out, and God will protect me and carry
And
me
he
through
did just
whatever
that.
it's going to be. And
He
I'm
did
still
just
here
that.
and made
Absolutely.
it through.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear that story from you. I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper now, because I want to talk about the mental effect that the services have. I know that you guys were stationed in different places, and I know you've probably seen a lot of things in your time of being in the armed services. And I want to know, and I'll start again with Sonia Brown, and I want to know how it affected you. I don't know if you actually saw war or if you saw people being hurt. I'm not sure that you did, but how did it affect you, if you did, mentally? How did you make it through that? What effects did it leave on you? How are you getting through it even today, in today's? Because a lot of times when you go through trauma in your life, even as a child, when you go through trauma, it don't just disappear. It comes back up. It stays with you. It's like they would say, I got that monkey on my back.
Right.
You carry that thing along with you. I don't care how you can tell that story to other people. I don't care how many psychiatrists, psychologists you go to. It's still with you. It's a part of you. It's not going anywhere. You learn how to live and you learn how to deal with it. But yet and still, it affects you. So tell me how it affected you.
Well, I think the biggest effect that the military had on me as a young girl, young woman, 18, 19, 20 years old, when I first went in to my permanent station, we had what they call co-ed barracks. And the women lived on the first floor and the men were on the second floor. And it was like a meat market.
Oh, geez.
You had all these young kids, young adults, in one building. And I don't think they thought it through good enough. That was the worst thing that they could have done. Just the fact that you were a female in a building with a whole lot of guys, and all they had to do was come down the stairs.
Wow.
And so the sexual harassment was intense. It was constant. It was daily. I had a steady boyfriend some of the time, but you would go to different posts. So when your time was up, then your time was up. So there you were. And I think that had an effect on me, a lasting effect on me, with just the constant knocking at your door in the middle of the night, just the sexual advances, or going up the steps in the dark and someone's kissing you, that's coming down the steps.
Wow.
And just feeling like there wasn't a whole lot that you could do about it. If you tried to report it to your seniors, they sometimes, as Kim spoke, sexually harassed you as well. So it was like, who am I really gonna go to?
Sure.
And back then in 1975, it might have been a little different. timing than it was in her era, because things may have changed a little bit. But when I went in, you just felt a little defenseless. So I didn't have a whole lot of trust, with men for a long time. And they would label you. They would lie on you, and they would say that you did things with them that you really didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of affected me, to be honest. And it
Okay.
affected me for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that it would. How about you, Evelyn? Did you experience any of the...
I can't recall anything that was really dramatic that affected me. I just know, though, and I've found this with a lot of people that served in the military, it's like I can't sit with my back,
That's
facing
a thing,
the
isn't
door.
it?
Right.
A lot of military people, and you go out to dinner with them or something,
Right.
it's like, oh no, I can't sit with my back toward the door.
Right.
Yeah.
I know where the exit is.
Right.
Why is that? Tell me that real quickly there. Why is that?
Because you're always on watch.
Because you're afraid somebody's gonna... I don't...
What do you?
Like you say, you're always on watch. You're on guard.
Right.
Guard.
You're on
You gotta
guard.
know
Yeah.
the way out. If
Yeah.
there's
You gotta know-
conflict,
You gotta
you
okay,
gotta know how
you
you're
gotta
gonna
know
get
how
out
you're
and
gonna
how
get
you're
out
gonna
of there.
navigate
Right.
That makes sense.
to stay alive.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot with a lot of different people, especially the men. I didn't know so much that the women do it, but I know that the men definitely do it. What about you, Kimberly? How mentally? What effects did it have on you mentally? How did you get through those things?
For me, I just went on day to day, I think. But it wasn't until 2005 that I found myself constantly just angry, upset, couldn't sleep, agitated, jumpy, and withdrawn. And my daughter, the sweetest kid coming up, never gave me any problems, but I was constantly yelling and fussing. And she looked at me one day and she said, "Mommy, what is wrong with you? Is something wrong with you? I'm not doing anything. What is wrong with you? Is something?" And she was fearful in tears. And to see her that way, and I went and looked at myself, I said, "This is not like you. This is not you." So I went to the VA Medical Center, and I told them that I needed to talk with someone. And from there, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. I served during Operation Just Cause in Panama during the conflict with Manuel Noriega, with the capture there, as well as in Southwest Asia in Saudi during Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So I had a lot of things that I had suppressed down through the years and trying to be this courageous superwoman, style leader, if you
Sure.
will. But mentally, I was not in a good place. So I was able to sit down and talk about how I was really feeling and take off the mask and everything, because that person, Roberta, across from me, she didn't know me.
Right.
So I could talk to her and tell her everything that I was feeling without being judged. And it just was an organic conversation started taking place, and I was given medication and all that. I was like, okay, but that made me seem more off than I was, and so I had to go back to my roots of just like my prayer and my faith. But in addition to knowing that there was someone else that I could call and talk to, and just knowing that they were there and willing to listen without judging me, without making it seem like, well, it's your fault that these things happen. And so I was able to overcome the obstacles that had been mentally put in my way, and was all because somebody was there to listen
To you, that you could vent to and be completely transparent with.
Right.
And that makes a difference,
It
because
does.
if you're with somebody and you begin to tell them your story and you feel like they're going to pass judgment on you and make you feel awkward about it. You tend to hold back things. You know what I mean? You tell them some things, but you don't tell them
And
everything.
it doesn't help you when you
Absolutely.
do that, but you have to have that trust, and you have to break that first barrier,
Absolutely.
if you will. And but mentally, I think that us as women veterans, we do carry a lot of mental
Absolutely.
anguish and stress,
Yeah.
and that is not good.
Right.
We
it's
know
not.
that it is not good, but there is help.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if I can tell y'all now. So, but you feeling like you in the middle of a crisis, like there is a crisis line,
Yes.
and dial the number. It's 1-800-273-TALK. That's
Absolutely.
the number.
And they can talk to a person, correct?
You press 1 and someone is
And
there.
someone is there.
Someone
And now, is this
there.
24-hour service?
It is 24 hours, 7 days a week.
And you know what? My husband, he contracted COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he served in the military in the Cuban War. And I did call a help number to VA. And they helped me because I was going through a rough
Because
time.
it was stress on
It was
you
so
as
much
well
stress
as on him.
on him.
And
exactly.
we need that. We need those outlets that we can all go to when we need to talk to somebody, and someone that will actually listen to us and let us tell our stories, and not interject their own, biases on our
Right,
stories.
exactly.
And that's very important. So I'm glad that you gave out that number, because I believe when they say PTSD, it's real, isn't it?
It is real, and and I tell people when we look at, for me, I have a passion. When I help people, so I serve as an accredited service officer. I help people. I can see things about people that others may not see or others do see, but they just don't know what to say to them.
Sure.
But I've been around people for quite some time. I myself, it's called post for a reason, because
is.
it doesn't come back up. You suppressed it so long.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like with our Vietnam veterans, and we have many female Vietnam veterans as well, but they came home, they weren't thinking about, okay, all this other stuff going on. It's like, I'm ready to start my family, my career, but now they've all retired within the last 10 to 20 years, and they have a lot of downtime, and they don't have things to keep them busy, and a lot of stuff is going on,
Right,
in their
right.
heads, through their minds and stuff like that. But there's help out there
Right.
for them, and that's why it's important, like to be there,
Sure.
to recognize or just to listen. I help people to receive monetary benefits.
And I wanted to touch on that because, as you were saying, as I said, PTSD is real. So when some have come home from the services and they want to start their lives and they want to build from there, some may have come home and weren't able to find jobs, weren't able to find benefits that would help support them and their families, and therefore, that depression could set in.
Oh, yes.
Because now it's like, what do I do? I've served my country. I have fought for everybody. I've protected this entire country, and you don't have things for me?
Yes.
And they're not in order? I can imagine, because I wasn't there, but I can imagine that's got to be pretty tough, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so what does a person do? Because they will fall into depression because they don't know who's going to help them. And then if you go to all these different doctors, the VA hospital, whatever, they're going to load you down with all these medications. Well, the medications, they may help you calm down a little bit, but they don't solve the problem.
Exactly. And so what I do, Vicki, is when in helping people to apply for benefits, I believe in helping them holistically. Because what good does it do for you to get $1,500, $3,500 a month if you're not able to enjoy whatever that is? So I like to help the veteran as a whole.
Yeah.
Because your mental well-being is just as important as your financial well-being.
It's more important than
Oh,
You better
definitely.
say that. You better
Yes,
say it.
yes,
Exactly.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
And I encourage veterans, look, here's a number. Go over on Bernard Street. Tell them you need to talk to somebody. Get in the toolkit, because you'll find out things about yourself that you didn't even remember, but it's helping you to cope, identify, embrace this is what it is, but also you're getting help and tools on how to deal with when you feel that anxiety rising up
Sure.
within, when you feel yourself kind of drifting away or becoming isolated, you have tools
to work with.
to work
bring you
with
back
that
there.
CBT
So-
therapy and that. Yes.
And let me ask all of you ladies this. And when we're dealing with our mental health state and trying to stay whole, because that's just the main thing. It's super important, to be able to be whole mentally. Are there things that trigger you?
Well,
Do you have triggers? And if you have triggers, things that trigger you, what brings you back to that peaceful place?
well, I remember when I retired, and I worked hard. I was in management for the phone companies, so my life was working, and my son. And I remember when I retired, and I was just standing in the window watching it snow for hours, and I started going back over my life,
Okay.
and I was like, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Why haven't you done certain things? Because, I never got married or anything. I just work. And you have to be honest with yourself.
Sure.
It comes a time in life where you have to really be transparent and be honest with yourself.
Yes.
And so I said, you know what, it's time to just seek some counsel. And so I did go to the VA. And I remember a lady was talking to me, and she just peeled back the onion on me.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever had anybody do that. She went all the way back to my childhood. And when she went back to my childhood, I began to weep.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm going to send you to some two classes, MST, and I didn't know what that was. And I said, oh no, I don't want to go there. I don't have time to do that. And so I remember a year passed, and they called me, and they told me, you haven't been to these classes yet. And I was like, making excuses as to why I didn't want to go.
Right.
And so they kept calling me. And so finally, I remember the first day I walked in, and I told the instructor, I said, I'm here, but I don't even know what MST is. And she said, it's military sexual trauma. And I began looking around the room, and I was like, military sexual trauma? I said, but it's men in here. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, how's men suffering from military sexual trauma? But as I began to sit in the classes and just listen to people, sharing and everything like that, it began to open my mind. And I said all of that I went through, when I was in the military, with the military sexual trauma, I realized that had affected me, and so through those classes, I was able to begin to heal. So you just have to take it upon yourself to want to be better. And I had made that decision that day when I was watching it snow, that I'm going to change my life, because I have nothing but time now. I don't have anything that I can hide behind. I'm not working no more.
Yes,
I can't pour myself into my work because I don't have any work. So I had to just, do what I had to do to help Sonia. And I'm a better woman for it.
Absolutely. And I think we tend to forget that even though women go through, sexual harassment, men do too.
Yes.
It's just not always brought out.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
It's just not always brought out, but they do go through it just as well.
Wow.
And isn't it wonderful that somebody kept holding on to you, even though you didn't want to hold on to them? Because you wanted nothing to do with it, but they didn't let you go.
Right.
And they held on to you.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. So, how about you? Do you have trigger points, Evelyn, that brings back up this trauma that maybe that you've experienced? What are those triggers, and where do you find your peace and your calm?
I find my peace and my calm with the work I do with women of colors. And I think I have a nervous energy where I constantly have to be busy. I can't sit still with idle time. Because it's like when I have idle time, I'm thinking about the what ifs and all the negativity that's around me. And so I'm always constantly trying to find ways to make to have something positive in life for myself or someone else. So I know that what triggers me is just sitting, having nothing to do. That triggers me.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And maybe I need to see a therapist about it, because it's not healthy either to just constantly be busy all the time. But it feels good. Like even just sitting around having these conversations is therapy for me. And I'm hoping that and praying that it helps someone else.
And I believe that it will. And that kind of explains the millions of emails you send me all the time.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle, I was going to say late at night.
Does she ever sleep?
They always come late.
Another email. And then she'll say, well, I sent you the email. You sent me 1 million of them.
How about what time was it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Right.
And you, Kimberly.
For me, my triggers are just like when things are not like together. If I envision something going one way and it's not, I have this, what kind of spirit is it? It's like,
Is
I
it
can't
anxiety?
It is anxiety. It is anxiety. But now I can ask you to do something. Okay? And I've already asked you to do it and tell you what time to be there, where everything is. But I don't have enough sense to appreciate the help that's there. I always have to be in it.
Okay.
Or double checking.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's not anything negative against
The person.
the person, but it's just my triggers
right.
are
Yeah.
Okay.
when business have to be taken care of.
You want it done right.
I figure I want it done right, and if I'm not there,
It's not
then it's
gonna be
not
done
going to be
right.
done right. And just being around a lot of people, I have I don't know the right word to use. I have a fear, for lack of better words, of failure,
Okay.
of things not
That's
going
huge. Yeah.
the right way. So for me, that's what triggers me, is when something has to be done, the anxiety just kicks in. And I don't, and every day I wake up, and ask, okay, what can I do
Sure.
to help someone else, and make their lives better. And that's what keeps me more calm. And relaxed, knowing that I've helped someone, each day. And it's not a cliche. It is like, even being here, what can I do? Like today, my thing today was, I've been looking forward to coming here, sitting down, having a conversation, and then knowing later that, and being able to be fully organic, that hopefully someone else, is helped just by the real conversation.
And you know what? Like I said before, I believe someone is. People that are looking on, who are listening to the stories that you ladies are sharing, you're helping somebody. Because somebody is going through these things and have gone through them, and they may not know. And I'd like you to give that number out again, because it's 24-hour crisis line, for lack of a better word, right?
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Is it? Okay. 24 hours crisis line, 7 days a week. You can get up at any time of the night. You can call, and somebody's on the other end. You're not going to get press 1 for this, press 2 for that,
Right.
or or that that robotic person on the other end.
Exactly.
That I don't like. You get a real live person
Right.
who's going to help walk you through what you're going through. That if you have been triggered, is going to bring you back down to your center.
That is
correct?
true. And
So go ahead and give that number out again.
Okay, so the Veterans Crisis Line number is 1-800-273-TALK. Or 1-800-273-8255
Absolutely.
is the number, and that's the crisis talk line. But anyone that may find themselves in a situation or in a crisis can call that number.
Okay, so you don't have to be in the military.
You do not. You do
Okay,
not. It is a
perfect. Now,
it's a
that's good to
crisis
know.
talk line, and they will from there help you. If you're not a veteran,
Sure.
they will still have someone else there for you to talk to.
That's
Your
wonderful.
family members that may have another family member
Sure.
in distress may call that number. So
Okay.
I encourage, it's someone is 24 hours a day. 7 days a week,
Okay.
365 days a year, 66
right.
when it's leap year. So someone is always there.
Perfect, perfect. I like that. Well, you know, ladies, you just have something else?
Yes,
Evelyn,
I was
real
just
quick?
going to say, too, they just released another number. Like we have 911 for
Yeah.
emergency call. There's a number for mental health emergency
Okay.
crisis number,
Yes.
988. I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
988.
Okay. There you
Is
go.
the
There you
another
go.
number you
You
can
All
call.
right.
For
Isn't
Yeah,
there
so-
one that's 211 as well?
Well,
yeah.
that's the information line,
That's
like
the
for you to
information
call,
line?
like if you're having hardships
Oh,
or
okay.
something. It's for you to
Okay.
call to get like
Okay.
community
I know I
resources.
heard
Right,
those numbers.
right,
Mhm.
211.
Okay. Well, you know, ladies, this has been my pleasure to talk to each one of you, Sonia Brown, Evelyn McGovern, Kimberly Napoleon. You know, it's been my pleasure to sit here and have our Women of Colors table talk. You
Yes.
ladies have done great with all of your sharing and being totally transparent. I believe that you are helping somebody right now as we've been talking. And so I'm thanking you once again for sharing with us. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you
for
so very
having
much.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.